The wine industry nearly buckled under pressure during the first lockdown. How's the industry doing now that it has received favourable restrictions allowing business to go ahead? Maryna Calow, Communications Manager at Wines of South Africa, joins us now. Maryna, thank you so much for your time. Now, the industry suffered around 400 million rands per week during the first lockdown. How's the industry doing now?
We as an industry are so relieved to have the dispensation from the South African government to be allowed to sell wine again from our tasting room venues across the Western Cape over weekends. The various bans on sales of alcohol throughout the lockdown periods had a dramatic impact on our industry. And as you rightly say, 400 million rands a week was lost, totaling roughly 7.5 billion rand over the full period of time.
Now, Maryna, how do you feel now about the new COVID-19 regulations relating to the sale of wine and obviously the reopening of wine farms?
We as an industry are absolutely elated to have this opportunity. We have continuously engaged with government on various levels to highlight the plight of our industry. The fact of the matter is we are first and foremost an agricultural industry, and we only have one harvest a year. So for us to not be able to get rid of a lot of the stock that we have, a few months ago we estimated a surplus stock of roughly 300 million litres of wine. This has to be negated somehow, and our new harvest is set to start in January again. So this is crunch time for us, and of course this festive period is really the period for us to do away with as much of the surplus stock as possible in order to get our cellars empty and ready for the new harvest in January.
Now, in terms of that surplus that you're talking about, how reliant is this industry on retailers? I mean, I saw an article recently about a major retailer ordering a vast amount of litres of wine for next year. How important is it that you have their support?
Any support for our industry is so vastly appreciated. So from a retailer perspective, it really does make a big difference. However, on the ground at these wineries is where so many of the sales really do happen. A number of these wineries don't really sell their wine in the retail sector whatsoever, and they're heavily reliant on wine tourism. So at this point in time where so many, especially South Africans, are visiting the Western Cape, not unfortunately as many international tourists as we would normally see over this period in time, it really will mean a lot for us to have this facility available during this absolutely crucial period of time for our industry.
Now, you mentioned vineyards and wineries. Take us through some of the pressures that the wine industry had to endure during the alcohol ban.
Well, first and foremost, there was a ban on exports, which lasted all of 5 weeks. And this was followed by some major issues that we experienced at the Cape Town Port Terminal as well. This had a huge impact on exports overall. I'm very happy to say that fortunately, as things stand, we have caught up with our exports, and our export figures volume-wise are looking very, very good. We're on par with the same time last year. However, on the local front, the ban on the sales is really what's hampered us significantly. And this 300 million litre stock we have to get rid of because the sellers simply cannot hold all of the stock. So we've had to think of really innovative ways. Hand sanitizer has been made from this product, juice concentrate. So we are a very resilient industry, and we believe that we will be able to come back. But it is also an industry that has seen a lot of shrinkage over the past 10 to 15 years, starting on about 105,000 hectares about 15 years ago. We're only on 93,000 hectares now, which is a big difference for an industry that one would imagine would be growing, and also an industry that employs roughly 300,000 people. So it is very important. It's historical, in fact, for South Africa, dating back over 360 years. So it would be a shame to really see this industry being hurt any further.
Now, you talk about your industry being a shrinking industry. In the alcohol value chain, as it were, where do you fit in? I mean, a lot of the times we hear that this industry feels very much deserted and has to fend for itself consistently.
We are very different to the rest of the wider South African alcohol industry. Even though we have recently worked together so well, it's been quite an incredible experience. However, we are an agricultural industry, as I mentioned earlier, and we really have been set aside from that perspective. Unfortunately, to date, we haven't had a lot of government support in terms of funding. If you were to compare the South African wine industry with our international competitors and the type of government support that they would receive on an agricultural level. So that really would be something that would make a huge difference to our farmers and our industry as a whole. And part of the reason why our industry is shrinking is simply due to the fact that the profitability and the margins experienced in our industry are just very, very, very small. And a lot of these vineyards that have been uprooted over these years have been replaced with products such as citrus, apples, berries, and nuts, simply because they are more lucrative and there seems to be a bit more support for these industries.
Maryna, perhaps as a final question from me. I mean, we are in the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic, and we're seeing some restrictions again being imposed in South Africa. And from an alcohol front, now we've got restrictions where people can only consume them or buy them at a certain time. What does that mean for the wine industry? Because we understand that at wine farms and wine estates, people can still come for wine tasting. How does that work?
Along with the rest of the South African alcohol industry, we implore all South African alcohol consumers to drink responsibly. This is a very important and clear message that we would like to send as the South African wine industry. Please do not binge drink. Do not drink and drive, especially over this critical period or any other period for that matter. And of course, underage drinking is also a huge issue in our country. So we really focus on this. The message is very clear. Our wineries support this wholeheartedly. Get a designated driver if you are visiting these farms. And fortunately, from a wine tourism perspective, many of these farms have accommodation on them. Uber is quite popular in the South African, the Cape Winelands, shall I say. So there are options, there are ways around it that you can negate the various issues. And of course, from a COVID safety perspective, we have sent very clear instruction, and all our wineries that we are aware of really do comply with the various protocols that are in place in terms of sanitization, social distancing, and ensuring that people can visit these wineries and enjoy themselves and leave knowing that they've had a great experience and they haven't been put at risk in any shape, way, or form.
Maryna Calow, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Of course, she is from Wines of South Africa.